You're enjoying Racing World. It's brought to you by Perspective Group. It's your global motorsport podcast show brought to you in conjunction with Race Control Magazine.
Second round of the NTT INDYCAR Series for 2024, and it was all about one thing. And that one thing, Scott Dixon, here on Racing World. Sad news, of course, for anyone associated with motorsport in New Zealand this week with the passing of Sir Colin Giltrap. Monumental man in his own right and everything he did for the sport and helping so many young careers out. The Giltrap Group supported our documentary last year as well, but the loss of Sir Colin is a major, major blow to New Zealand motorsport. Incredible family, very passionate about what they've done, and they've launched so many careers. So very sad day for New Zealand as a whole and for New Zealand motorsport. To slightly more positive things now, and IndyCar announced and debuted at Long Beach Aeroscreen version 2. Quite a few changes to it. One of the things we're seeing now is built-in cooling vents built into the top of the Aeroscreen, and also one in the center at the bottom, which is to increase the airflow into the cockpit to aid the drivers, stronger than the first one and lighter. So Aeroscreen 2 is there, and you have to say it's a pretty classy looking screen. Big news also out of IndyCar. This one I'm kind of a little bit confused about because I find it interesting that a team owner can be involved in this, but Zach Brown appointed to become part of the marketing team for the greater INDYCAR Series. So you've got a team owner in a very interesting position now whereby he's helping with the marketing and the strategic moves that IndyCar will make in the coming time. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays itself out, because obviously you don't want there to be a lot of papaya orange in there necessarily, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of neutral clauses built into that. Speaking of the Indy 500, this came across my desk this morning. We're almost at the end of April, and never seen this even in the 100th year, or the 100th running of the Indy 500, we didn't see this. Car parking and camping for this year's 108th running of the Indy 500 presented by Gamebridge sold out in April. So that gives you an indication of the fact that the enthusiasm around this year's Indy 500 is at a pretty much all-time high. Is this the Larson factor? Don't know, but it'd be interesting to see. Or is it just the uptake in enthusiasm in the INDYCAR Series? I think it's a combination of both, and of course the 108th running of the great race. And then our Pick of the Week award, well, that goes to Alex Albon in his Panda helmet at the recent Chinese Grand Prix. Had to have this one. I think it's just an iconic helmet. What a sight it was. Congratulations to everyone involved in that one. It certainly is quite an iconic look, and I think it was really good. Very fitting for China as well, with the symbolic panda on there. So Alex Albon, you get our Helmet of the Week pick, that's for sure. Onwards now to IndyCar and the lead up to the race at Long Beach. A couple of interesting little points in this. The first of all, it was the 40th running of an IndyCar race at Long Beach, so major milestone there. And then the second part of it was what was happening at the Arrow McLaren team. David Malukas still not back in the car, suffering from that wrist injury from his mountain biking accident. Was expected to be back in the car actually by now. The wrist should have healed itself. And if you compare that to, say, the Daniel Ricciardo wrist injury, this one's taken a lot longer to heal. Maybe we'll see Malukas in the car for the Indy 500. You would certainly have to hope so. Don't forget, Callum Ilott tested the car at the open test recently. Ilott not available for this round at Long Beach because it clashed with a WIC event that was being held in Italy, so he couldn't be there because he has a full-time job driving in WIC this year. So stand-in was Theo Pourchaire, for the current FIA Formula 2 champion, and brings a certain amount of credibility to the team, but it only, or had never sat in an IndyCar up until that time. Did a little bit of sim work and everything, but we had the chance before the event to catch up with Pourchaire.
First of all, I have to thank Arrow McLaren for giving me this amazing opportunity. Of course, I'm thinking about David, his injury, so it's not going to be easy for me to drive there because I have zero experience in IndyCar, but the team is amazing. I met all the people in the team, and I spent 2 good weeks in Indianapolis. I had the chance to see the eclipse, which is great. Do a little bit of simulator, do the sit fit, work with the team, and I feel comfortable. Even if I don't know the track, the car, it's going to be a first time for me this weekend. So, but I really, I'm looking forward to drive this afternoon already.
Well, since then, More has developed. Malukas not in the car this weekend at Barber Motorsport Park either. The wrist still not fully healed. So this has got to be mentally tough on Malukas and starting to take its toll on him, because once he gets back in the car, the pressure's going to really mount quite quickly for him to perform. And there's nothing worse than feeling the strain and stress of that as a driver. Very similar to the position that Ricciardo's in right now at Red Bull. So what will we see? We're going to see Pashere back in the car again this weekend at Alabama, and it will be a chance for him to really stake a claim, I think, on that third seat. Will this lead to him being in the car more often? One never knows, but the fact that they've now brought him back in again is a sign of things to come, I feel. I feel that this Malukas injury is going to just hamper the whole program that Malukas had for this season. You'd wish that, you wouldn't wish that upon any driver, and it's the cruel side of the sport, that's for sure. And maybe we will still see Malukas in for the Indy Grand Prix, which is the next event. You've got to remember too, now we're into these run of races that will happen more almost continuously weekends. As Scott Dixon mentioned to us, or does mention to us later on, for him it's 10 weekends worth of racing, including his venture to Le Mans. So you need a fit driver in the car right now, and let's hope that David Malukas, who showed so much potential, gets that opportunity to get back in the car. Righto, onwards to qualifying at Long Beach. Now, it was interesting, there was a few modifications made to the track, a little bit of easing around the turn 8 area, which became quite well documented. During practice 2, Will Power clipped the wall twice, same spot. But it was certainly pushing things. There was a different strategy there. There'd been a lot of running on that track because prior to the event there was the Drift Series there, the US Drift Series, and then over the course of the weekend, of course, the INSMA sports cars were there as well, different type of rubber. So there was a lot of things. But one of the big things, of course, was what I noticed, a very, very relaxed Will Power, very tongue-in-cheek. And when Will Power's like that, it makes him a very strong competitor, because a relaxed Will Power is dangerous to all his fellow competitors because he's going to turn it on. A couple of grabs from the press conference here. The first one was from Jenna Fryer of AP that does a lot of reporting in the States, and I was across that as well. And she asked Will about the idea of where he felt he would be at the Indy 500, and it's quite a comical approach and answer that you get from Will, and it sums up his peace of mind currently. So here's what Jenna had to say to him.
Win the pole for the Indy 500 if it's a Penske car. I'm wondering if you've already seen the 100 Days to Indy script, because I thought Kyle Larson was going to win the pole.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, you don't know, but I feel like we have a great
Why?
shot. Because we've worked so hard. Like, I don't think we've left anything on the table. I just can't really, we've worked. I've said that for the last 5 years. I haven't said we'd be on pole, but I've said I think we have a good shot. But this year, I'm like, man, I really feel like we've put everything together. So we'll see. I feel like one of our cars has a great shot at pole, or if not all, on the sort of fighting on the front row. But I hope so. I hope so.
But it's not because you saw the 100 Days to Indy script.
I haven't seen 100. What is that? The first of the second season, or?
Well, they write it out, and then they got Joseph the win last year, so maybe they can help you this year.
Yeah, no, I did read the script and it says that I'll be on pole, so there we go.
Well, I won't tell Kyle Larson then.
Yeah, they had him in there as pole, and I got in there and politicked and got it changed, so he can go. He's NASCAR. Sorry, I'm changing the script.
Yes, well, so he sees it as maybe a potentially all Penske front row. That will be very interesting. Will that happen? Well, we'll know in just over a month from now whether that comes true or not. That would be a very daunting exercise for anyone. But there seems to be an air of confidence with Will, the fact that Penske have the right ingredients to go to the Indianapolis 500 and turn it on. And I think that Power will become a contender for that race, regardless of where he starts, and equally a contender in this year's championship, because I just see a spark back in his eye this year that we haven't seen for a couple of years. And I rate him very highly to be involved in the championship scrap this year, that's for sure. Following on from that, I had the chance to ask Will a couple of questions myself, and I was very interested to see what he thought about the weight differential in the car, bearing in mind that it's running quite lighter at the moment, about 35 pounds lighter over what it will be when the hybrid engine goes in, what he felt that would do for speeds at the Indy 500, and then equally asked him about the hairpin at Long Beach and what that was doing for grip level. And just like what he'd been with Jenna, we got a very tongue-in-cheek answer from Will, so I'm sure you'll enjoy that. To both of you, really, you talked about the differences in the weight in the car at the moment because of waiting for the hybrid engine. And I know that you only had limited amount of running at the open test at Indy. Are we going to see some of that translate into the differences of the car for the 500 this year in terms of weight distribution?
Changes to the car for the 500.
Yeah. The car will be
lighter
the
car.
quickest they will be for a long time, I think, at the 500 this year because they're a bit lighter. How fast? I think for my pole will be like 2:36.5. Yeah, it'd be my quickest lap and be an average in the 35. So, yeah, that's quick.
And then one other question, just with
Pretty
the
flat.
other running that's been going on at the circuit with the drifting and everything else, what's it like coming out of the hairpin in terms of grip level?
The hairpin's pretty good.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
I think he's asking how it is.
Levels on the track.
Grip level out of the hairpin. It's pretty good.
Yeah, once the drifting rubber's gone, it's pretty decent.
Yeah,
Not if you get out there on the high line.
I tried it just for fun.
It's not great.
Just
is
a
it?
drift. Because I actually want to do a bit of drifting, you know.
If you're on an in lap, you can just make a bit of a show for the fans.
We should do that on just the first lap of the race.
Yeah.
Just go outside drifting.
They should put a cone so you have
Yeah.
to go out there.
That's the new thing.
Yeah.
To do.
Well, onwards to the race at Long Beach, and there's really only a couple of words to sum it up. Scott Dixon, Scott Dixon, Scott Dixon. Where was the turning point in that race? That first yellow flag period that came out around lap 16, 17 mark. Dixon chose to pit then, run on a 3-stop strategy rather than the 2. He had a set of tyres in hand because he didn't make that fast 6 in qualifying, whereas someone like Will Power had. Power was able to almost match Dixon across the race in terms of strategy, but the tyre wear was to his disadvantage because he'd used up an extra set of tyres during that qualifying period. So Dixon had the slightly upper hand there. Dixon's ability to manage his push to pass and pretty much squirt the car out of the corner when he needed to, as well as the fuel conservation. Don't know how he did it. Absolutely amazing performance. And this is now 20 years that Scott Dixon has consecutively won at least one race in the NTT INDYCAR Series, or whatever you want to call it, but its current name, NTT INDYCAR Series. Just phenomenal performance from Dixon. Proved that he is still worthy of everything that we give him credit for. Don't forget he was inducted into the US Motorsport Hall of Fame only a few weeks ago. This put Honda on all 3 steps of the podium as well. So after talk of Chevy may have been back on top of their game, Honda countered that well and truly at Long Beach. So there was a lot of things going on there, but the day certainly belonged to Scott Dixon and made New Zealand feel very proud. And we'll hear from him shortly. But in our roundup of drivers that we did get to catch up with was a Chevy-powered driver in this instance, and that was Romain Grosjean. Had a great performance for Junkos Hollinger Racing. Nothing stand out as such, but it was a good, solid performance for them and a good morale boost for the team. So I had a very quick chat with Romain Grosjean.
P16 to P8, it was a great Long Beach Grand Prix for us. Augustine did a great race as well. As a team, we can be part of that. We improved a lot from St. Pete, and I'm happy that we were able to show such a strong outing on that racetrack. Can't wait for next week in Barber.
Grosjean's always slightly controversial, but you do get a bit of a good yarn from him, and he's always quite approachable when I've met him at Indianapolis and some of the other events. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out for him. Barber has always been a strong circuit for him, so they're there this weekend. You would expect Junkos to be back up and amongst it, and they'll certainly be aiming for that for sure. Now, looking at the podium, Carlton Herter and Alex Palau both joining Dixon on the podium. Both had pretty reasonable runs. The local kid, of course, Herter, has won there before. And Palau has won there before as well. So, you know, it was a clean sweep, as I mentioned, to Honda. I don't think Herter had anything in it for Dixon. And don't forget, near the closing stages of the race, he did run up the back end of the Joseph Newgarden car, which caused it to go into its anti-stall mode. I put that down as a racing incident and should be nothing more read into that. It was just one of those things. That hairpin is notoriously tight. But it was good to catch up with Herter in the post-race press conference.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough race. I still don't completely know how Dixon made it to the front. I imagine he pitted on the yellow and did things like would have been like 34 lap stints from there. Yeah, 34 lap stints, 33 lap stints. So no, I mean it was that was pretty impressive. But from where we were, we thought the best option was staying out there, and I think we made the most out of that strategy. I was happy with how the car was. We were super fast, and yeah, sometimes you need a little bit more than just speed in IndyCar racing, and we saw that today. But it's yeah, it's always a tough one to lose at the home race. But I'm happy with second. Can't complain too much.
Quite like it when other drivers say they can't work out how a Kiwi Scott Dixon's able to manage that fuel mileage. And of course, his teammate Alex Palou, he had plenty to say as well.
I love it. I mean, it was a tough race. I think for everybody, different strategies. We also thought that the best thing was to stay out, and I think it was the best thing for the 10 car. I don't think I could have made it work like Scott did. I was not surprised that he took it, because he knows he can make it work. I don't know how, but yeah, I'll study that probably tonight.
Were you surprised to see Dixon win this thing, knowing what he was?
Once he took it, it was like, okay, he's gonna make it work. I don't know how. Like it's not easy. It's super tough. And if you know the numbers that he has to get and what he has to do driving wise, I mean, you can see other people did it. Like I think Power is the second driver that did it. And yeah, it's tough, man. So he does it. I don't know how. Probably he's cheating and he has an extra fuel cell that I don't know yet. But yeah, that's it. I'm joking, obviously, just in case. It's
still takes a bit of getting used to seeing Palou in the yellow colours this year, DHL, but boy oh boy, that car looks really good, and I'm sure the Indy configuration will look very good as well. On to the man of the moment, of course, and that was Kiwi Scott Dixon. Had the chance to talk to him about the passing of the late Sir Colin Giltrap, and of course what the month of May is leading into, the fact that he's on the road now for over 10 weeks in a row, racing every weekend. This shows you the level of commitment, fitness, and everything else that comes into play as a race car driver that Dixon still has, and people starting to knock him because of his age. There ain't nothing to prove about the age. This guy is full of talent. So here's some words with Scott Dixon.
Okay, let's take one off Zoom. Of course, it's David Turner. David, well, go ahead, sir.
Thanks very much, Dave. Congratulations, Scott. Great win today. You certainly had us all worried when that first yellow came out as to what was going to happen there. Just getting slightly off the topic just for a second. I'm obviously actually at the Giltrap group at the moment, and just wanted your thoughts, please, on the passing of Sir Colin on Friday of last week. And what he
it's definitely a big loss to lose Sir Colin. As I mentioned, a huge help for myself, but pretty much the whole outside of motor racing plenty as well, but any Kiwi I think that's raced internationally is because of him and his family. To have the foresight where he did it at young ages for all of us to help us, and for me it was definitely a huge help. I had an investment group that, of course, out of 14 or 15 people, you're going to have people that disagree, and he had enough, kind of clout to straighten out the people that weren't agreeing. So, forever in debt to him and his family. Obviously, spoken to Richard and I haven't got to speak to Michael yet, but Jenny and everybody in the family. It's a huge loss. What Colin has done for motorsport. And many people around the world is huge. So, it's definitely a sad week for sure.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. And then just looking at the series itself now, you've got a run of races coming up really from now onwards, a big stretch of races. What's that like in terms of preparation for yourself? And then, of course, the month of May and only having the one day of the open test there, has that hindered things?
Yeah, probably for us, the least amount of running is better. I think we have a pretty good base there. With losing some of the engineers that we have over the past couple of years, there's definitely other teams now that have a pretty good idea of what we do. So that will help some other teams. But yeah, it's a tough battle. I think for me, once we get to the month of May, it's 10 weekends in a row, including Le Mans. So it's definitely full on for sure, but that's what I love to do, man. Love to race cars, love to be out there, and hopefully we can have a pretty special 10 weeks, when we get to that portion of the year.
Well, congratulations again on today. Great to see you back on that top step of the podium, and catch up with you again in just over a couple of weeks from now. So look forward to seeing you.
Sounds good. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Thanks, David. Safe travels.
Well, that pretty much wraps up a bit of a quick show this weekend. Not really a lot to say about the Chinese F1 Grand Prix and the WIC event and Taupo Supercars other than that. They were all great events, actually. Good to see F1 back in China. Didn't really think a hell of a lot of the race. There's a lot going on there, and maybe we'll analyse that in the coming days. But this was really about Long Beach IndyCar, because obviously the teams are at Alabama in just a couple of days from now. And then, of course, off to Indianapolis, the Indy Grand Prix, and then the 108th running of that race, the Indy 500. So there's a lot of things happening motorsport-wise. Keep an eye out for those. Once again, thank you to everyone for sharing, liking, particularly because it's really helping the website or the YouTube channel grow, and I appreciate that. Every like really counts. So thank you very much for that. Subscribe, of course, and you'll get the latest notifications as soon as they come to hand when we post a new show. And then I've got something very special for New Zealand viewers in just a few days from now when I'm able to put it all together. I found highlights of the 1987 Nissan Mobile Wellington Street Race. So we're going to try and put that into a little bit of a show and have a nostalgic look back at what was one of the great classic touring car races in New Zealand, and see people like Peter Brock and Alan Moffat driving around the downtown streets of Wellington. So keep an eye out for that one. That'll be a little bit of a bonus show in the next few days. Until next week though, when we look at Alabama and everything else that's happening in the world of motorsport, thanks so much for watching Racing World.